When Mike Matheny retired in 2008 following a solid 13-year career as a major league catcher, he had an interesting offer to consider. Some parents in his community asked him to coach a youth baseball team. The idea intrigued him, but if he was going to do it, he was going to do it on his terms. So he wrote a 5-page single-space letter to the parents on how he would coach the team. It talked about respect, discipline, and humility. It stressed playing with class, and it clearly defined for the parents that there would be no coaching, criticizing, or interfering from the sidelines. It was powerful. The letter found its way onto the internet, went viral, and was the springboard for the Matheny Manifesto, a book Matheny wrote that captures what coaching youth sports and having a child involved in youth sports is really all about. Now in his 4th year as the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals, he has impacted a lot of young lives during his coaching days because he did it the right way.
I think one of the big things that people need to understand is we're sitting outside of our clubhouse right now. These aren't just my opinions. I went through and I talked to coaches, went through and talked to players, current players, and said, tell me what your parents did at the games. And it was amazing to me that they were very similar to what mine were, and that was a silent source of support. And they didn't have the craziness. And somehow, call it irony, I don't know, but a lot of those kids that had parents like that, their kids got burnt out, maxed out, and decided to get out. And it was a pretty consistent theme through that clubhouse. So I also felt that this is a great way to tell some people out there, okay, if your kids are a part of that very, very small percentage that get to that highest level, there's a way the parents act. And it just so happens to be the same way the parents should act for the 99% of the kids that are only going to use baseball or a sport or an extracurricular activity to kind of develop those character traits that they need for the rest of their lives. I think maybe one is I think they've seen a model out there in some of the teams that are quite frankly, some of the better teams have these kids, and that so much has been invested, and higher dollars invested. Sometimes it isn't always the purpose, but in the end, it's almost like a higher returns required. And so if the parents are going to put in and even stretch maybe financially to be able to afford all these lessons and in this high-level team, then they have the pressure to feel that, okay, if I'm doing that, then you better get that scholarship, and that's not fair to these kids. And if you can afford it, that's great. Go out and give them every experience that they can, but let that be led by the kids. But what that leads to, I think, is just a higher level of pressure put on the adults by themselves. And you're seeing what I saw, which was parents climbing up the back of screens, screaming at kids. Every game I'd go to, I'd see a kid get bawled out. A kid's walking out of there every single night crying. And that's usually not from the coach. It's usually something that came from somebody else and some of the most important people to them. And we wonder why these kids are opting out and deciding to sit in front of a video game where nobody's telling them what to do. So I get that, but I think we're also seeing some of the balls dropped by coaches as well, who just have this lofty expectation that they're only successful by stacking up a lot of youth league trophies. And I'm not against winning, believe me, that's my job. But at the lower levels, and we're trying to teach kids passion, we're trying to teach them just a lifelong love of the game and teach them the game, because most of them don't even understand it. You better start with fun. You better start with making sure that you're keeping them engaged in a successful day at the baseball field at the lowest levels. The kids want to come back, and whatever you got to do, bubble gum, ice cream, whatever, make that happen. And it's amazing how that just kind of keeps growing if you keep on track.
Growing up in Ohio, Matheny played a variety of sports. He credits his parents for being supportive, not pushy, and for teaching him the importance of respecting coaches, officials, and opposing players.
Yeah, I think my parents did it right. It started out being fun, and it was about going out and bubble gum during the game and ice cream after, and nobody cared if we won or lost. It was about having a great time and a unique experience. I couldn't wait for the next baseball season to come around. Couldn't wait. And then encouraging us to play, go out and just play sports, not just baseball. We're playing basketball, and then it goes into baseball, and then to football, and it's just kind of a cycle. They never did force just one sport on me. They never gave me that pressure that I had to achieve or be anything. It was about what did I want, and I thought that was extremely important. And I had coaches then who knew how to teach the game, and then when I started wanting to be pushed, my parents responded the best they could. My parents just stayed very consistent with what the expectation was. I played hard. I showed my coach respect. I showed the opposing team respect, and coaches went along the same way, but my parents also made sure that that was enforced. And there was a certain way I was expected to handle myself because I wore their name on my back, and that's a high calling. It's not our job to completely dictate how these parents treat their kids, and you know, it's tough for them though. We have parents that love keeping stats, and they were so tempted, and we just told them it's not going to happen. I don't care what anybody's average is when these kids are 10 years old. I don't care. It's not going to, nobody's going to publish this. It's not going to make a record book. Let them play the game. You know, we barely kept score, and that was only because we had to by league rules early on. Now, once again, we get later, it's all about, you know, I absolutely believe that the team that works the hardest, trains the best, has the most talented kids, and drives to be better, they're going to win. And I don't believe everybody gets a trophy. I believe that there's a trophy out there as a goal, as a carrot to keep working. But you know, parents don't always agree the same way, and they see success maybe as only if he strikes everybody out and he gets 3 hits that particular day. And you know, they all have to kind of work together to what the expectations are. And as a coach, I think you just try to stay involved and make sure that they understand that maybe this boy put the ball in play 3 times that game, and that's a huge success. And so we'd go out of our way and say, he didn't get any hits, but you got to understand what he just did here. This was big. Or a kid, he gets a glove on a ball, doesn't even catch it, but he hadn't been within a hand grenade distance of a ball for a month. He gets a glove on it and touches it. That's a huge step in the right direction. So I think, you know, depending on the age level, but I think it's a coach's responsibility to kind of set the tone for what that success looks like in a game-by-game situation.
It's also a coach's responsibility to stress key values like good sportsmanship, character, and effort. Matheny understands and embraces their importance as well as anyone, and he advises today's coaches to help their young athletes grab a hold of them too.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. First of all, I think you would look and ask yourself, if I had a child, what kind of character qualities would I like to see developed in them? And as a parent, you know, what am I trying to develop into my kids right now? And take those and just brainstorm and list them out. And then take each of those once a week. And I think you have to be intentional. I think you have to be deliberate. If you truly want this to stick, if you truly want it to mean something, instead of just telling kids, hey, we believe in that you need to develop as young men too with character. But if you're not backing it up by how you spend your time, if you're not willing to designate 20 or 30 minutes out of a practice and open up a topic like honesty, to open up a topic, you know, some tough topics like alcohol and drug abuse when kids get a little older, or purity. Being a coach is a trust. You've been entrusted with a life. And if you truly look at each of these kids that way, like I feel the same way with this big league team here, and it's something that's been entrusted to me, and I don't want to waste it. Now, you know, there are stronger voices in their life, I realize that, but I also believe that I got to do my part, and I don't want to drop the ball on that. And thinking about some of the greatest coaches in history and the lifelong impact that they've had, not just the successes on the court, but when you ask these players later, you know, who really impacted you, and they point out that coach, what a great compliment, and that they walked alongside what their parents were trying to teach, but then exemplified it during heated competition. And to me, that's a successful coach. I use the simple acronym ACE, you know, ACE, and attitude, concentration, and effort are the things that you can control. And you know, we keep working on the skills. You know, there's so many things that happen inside this game, even at our level, that's just beyond what we can do. And I preach the same thing in here. It's amazing how much crossover there is between what I say and how I go about the business at the youth level, and the same things happen here. But I want to make sure guys are honest evaluators of themselves as players also, and if they come in here with the right work ethic, the right way of thinking about the game, and their intensity as they're going about their business, then they lay it out on the line and they can walk away with a whole lot of pride about doing it the right way, even though the results might not be there. And I think it's just a great lesson to teach kids. I mean, there's so many things that can be taught through sports, especially this game. When it comes to failure, there's going to be so much failure, and how you deal with that, how you deal with the successes, how you deal with the day in, day out, and trying to be consistent, how you deal with being a teammate. And that just doesn't happen here. It happens in a boardroom just as well. And you know, you're talking to people in the corporate world, and they're looking for some of these kids who've learned sports lessons that can apply into the corporate world. And there's just so many things if people just, I think, slow down for a minute and try to realize that it's a life change, it's a character development, and it's a person that you're trying to help grow. You know, that's a tough issue, but I think just in general, it's a pretty good philosophy in life to try and do the right thing. And but you know, when it gets out here, and you know, we do this for a business, and we do anything we can to win. It's within the rules, and we push our guys hard, and we try to take advantage of any opportunity that we get. But sportsmanship to me comes down to character and treating people how you want to be treated. You know, I think it shines when you have opportunities, like with umpires, like with a coach acting like an absolute idiot on the other side. It's a great opportunity. Or you have kids out there cussing at our kids, and you know, wanting to slap them when they walk through, and they won't give you a high five after the game. It's a great opportunity for us to talk and talk about lessons, and talk about winning with class and losing with class, talk about working hard, talking about, you know, how hard character is, and how it needs to be displayed even better when it's falling apart all the way around us. So you know, I think part of it too is it's a great call to accountability for a coach when he says this sort of thing, right? And so I'm telling these coaches and parents, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to handle adversity. We're going to handle the other team. We're going to handle the umpires and the coaches and the parents of the other team in a certain way, and then because he's going to get turned up, and you've got a responsibility then and an accountability to act in a way that lines up with the words that you said early on. And I think it's a great guide for me, even as I work inside my clubhouse here with the big league guys. I tell them what I stand for, and then I've got some work to do to make sure I'm backing it up, or that makes me a hypocrite, and I'd lose their trust completely. Yeah, I think that's our natural reaction as a parent, right? Is jump in, and we don't want them to go through struggle. You know, and you always want to try and guard them from that. But I think we're probably taking away a great opportunity. I think of us as adults, where we learn the most from is usually in our failures and in the toughest times in our lives. Not that we want to watch kids intentionally go through those sort of things, but it's going to be inevitable. There's going to be things that happen on the field that don't necessarily go their way. So instead of sheltering them from them, I think it's a great opportunity if we understand that our job as a coach is really to be a teacher, and to try and walk through what exactly happened and how it could possibly be done different, or what the lesson to learn is. And I think it's just a completely different mentality, and it goes against the grain of what what common sense might tell you, first of all, and then what you're seeing in most coaching circles. But once again, it's a different definition that we have of success. And for us, always wide open and wide-eyed, looking for that opportunity for a teaching moment. And we've seen some success. And I'm not talking about huge wins and these great tournaments won. It's about watching these kids develop, and a great deal of them probably had the majority of those successes, as far as personal growth, come from some trials. Yeah, I think we're dropping the ball there. And I'll use Coach Bobby Knight, who told me that he very seldom recruited kids that were just basketball players. He said he felt they were either close to burnt out or close to maxed out, and he wanted to see these kids fight. He wanted to see a 6'6" shortstop that was that was really having trouble being the best on the team, how did he strive to get better, and to watch him out on the football field and see how he handled the physicality of it. And I thought there was some great wisdom there. There's so many times that we just think that, because the kid next door is doing 6 lessons a week, that somehow we have to do that to keep up. I mean, very few guys in this clubhouse were one-sport athletes, and a number of them took a break from the game of baseball because they just got to the point where so much pressure was sometimes coming on them that they said, I'm out for a little while, and then unfortunately they came back. But for the most part, they were all, and baseball wasn't always their first love either. We had a couple kids that were ready to sign college scholarships to go play football or hockey, and I think that just being an athlete and challenging different skill sets, I believe, helps you in your development for whatever sport you end up playing.
Mike Matheny has the highest winning percentage in the major leagues among active managers. But what's even more impressive is that when it comes to coaching kids, he gets what it's really all about. So as you coach your youth sports teams this season, keep these words you're about to hear in mind. They're incredibly powerful when you stop and think about how you want to be remembered by your players.
Yeah, I would say just keep checking your motive, and if it keeps coming back to this being about the kids, and keep redefining in your own mind what success is, and put a creed together, and even if it has to be something written down that you and your coaching staff and your parents all buy into, and if it is acting crazy, then more power to you. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, because I'm seeing more and more where these kids aren't just walking away from the game. There are also some fractured relationships, and it's all caused because I believe of lack of education of really how this thing should work, and that's my opinion. And not everybody's going to agree, and I get that. And when I first wrote the book, I understood that there's going to be people that disagree, and if they didn't, then I probably wrote a lot of words and didn't even say anything. And I hope it does challenge some people in the way they think. I know I challenge myself, and I have a set of initiatives of what I want to accomplish. But I also think, just like I talk to our guys too, is I don't believe it's a bad thing for a volunteer coach to go ahead and put out a legacy as a coach of what they want to be remembered for. Do you want to be remembered for being 12-0 in your 8 and under youth league, or do you want to be remembered by those kids that you had an opportunity to impact, that you made a difference, you taught them something they're going to carry the rest of their life and may go on and pass on to multiple others. To me, that's exciting, to use a game that I love to impact people, and that might be passed on for a long time.